how entitled to more, which is just, it's astounding. I think he really is just kind of inherently selfish.
Welcome back to Glow Gossips USA, where the truth behind the drama always finds its voice. Today, we are diving into a moment that shook not just the sister wives world, but every viewer who ever watched Kody Brown flip, swirl, and toss those wild blonde curls that became almost as famous as his name. But now, those curls are gone. Yes, you heard that right. Kody Brown has officially chopped off the hair he carried for decades. And he didn't just trim it, he completely transformed himself in a way nobody expected, not his fans, not his critics, not his children, and certainly not the women who once shared his plural marriage. This is not just a haircut. This is a statement. A confession without words. A reset button Kody never knew he needed to press. And today, we are pulling back the curtain and taking you into the emotional, shocking, behind-the-scenes story of how it happened, why it happened, and what this means for the future of the Brown family. It all started on a strangely quiet afternoon inside the TLC production studio. Normally, the hallways buzz with noise, producers calling out directions, crew members rushing with equipment, and assistants running checklists to make sure every scene is set. But that day, the air felt heavy, like everyone sensed something unusual was about to unfold. Through the silence, Kody Brown walked slowly down the hallway, his footsteps echoing, his head lower than usual, his jaw tense. He wasn't wearing his usual confident smirk. There was no dramatic hair flip. No booming "I'm right, you're wrong" attitude. Just a man walking toward a dressing room, where a stylist. Kody inhaled deeply, staring into the mirror. His reflection stared back at him, not with pride, not with confidence, but with a kind of exhaustion he could no longer hide. "Yeah," he whispered. "Let's do it." And then it happened. The first cut. One clean snip. A golden curl fell to the floor. That tiny moment carried more weight than anyone in that room expected. Because that curl didn't just represent hair, it represented years of emotional baggage. Years of ego. Years of denial. Years of him refusing to face the truth about the damage he caused in his family. Years of clinging to an identity built on a belief system he no longer even practices. Years of hiding behind a persona that felt powerful, but isolated him from the people he once called family. The stylist continued cutting, curl after curl falling like wilted petals. And as the pile grew, something strange happened. Kody's expression shifted. The tension in his jaw softened. The tightness in his shoulders eased. He looked exposed. Vulnerable. Completely unguarded for perhaps the first time in his adult life. Outside the dressing room, producers whispered nervously. A camera operator signaled his team to get ready. A production assistant rushed to adjust the lighting. Everyone could sense it. This wasn't just vanity. This was a moment sister wives' history would remember. A before and after that fans would analyze for years. The haircut was supposed to stay secret until the official on-camera reveal. But as we all know, secrets don't survive long in the sister wives universe. Someone, most likely a young crew member, snapped a photo from outside the dressing room. The picture showed Kody in a salon cape, curls scattered around him like a crime scene. The image leaked online within minutes, and the internet exploded instantly. OMG, he cut it. He's definitely having a midlife crisis. Robyn probably forced this. He's trying to reinvent himself for the cameras. He wants sympathy now. After everything. This feels like the end of the Kody era. But the most powerful comment came from a longtime fan who wrote, "Kody cutting his curls feels like the symbolic death of the man he used to be." Back inside the room, Kody didn't know the photo had leaked yet. He was too busy watching himself change in real time. When the stylist finished, she stepped back and said softly, "Well, are you ready to see it?" Kody leaned forward, gripping the arms of the chair, and stared at his new reflection. His eyes widened just slightly. No smile. No shock. Just a heavy, quiet recognition, like he was trying to make peace with someone he wasn't sure he liked. "Do I look different?" he finally asked. The stylist gave a small, honest nod. "You look lighter." That word hit him harder than any insult, any criticism, any argument he ever had with Christine, Janelle, Meri, or even Robyn. Lighter. Not younger, not better, not stronger, just lighter. It was a word that suggested he had been carrying something heavy all along. The makeup artist stepped in. The cameras rolled closer. Microphones clicked on. Producers gathered behind the monitors. The entire studio seemed to hold its breath. And then, the dressing room door opened, and the new version of Kody Brown emerged. Silence fell like a blanket. The cameras locked onto him. The lights brightened. And the first question landed like a hammer. "Kody, why now? Why cut off your curls after all these years?" He paused. A long, slow, deep pause. Then he exhaled and said, "I think I needed to let go of something. Something I held onto for too long." It was vague, but powerful. Almost like a confession disguised as a sentence. Something he held onto too long. His image. His pride. His fear of being wrong. His desire to control everything around him. No one knew for sure, but everyone felt the weight of those words. Then came the next question: "Do your wives, your former wives, know about this?" This time, his eyes flickered. His lips tightened slightly, like he was bracing for emotional impact. Christine's name floated in the air. Janelle's disappointment lingered. Meri's decades of loneliness hung heavy. Robyn's influence loomed. "They don't know," he said. "And I wasn't sure how they'd react. Maybe this is the first thing in a long time that I'm doing just for me." That line hit the internet like a bomb. Fans commented, "Oh, so now he wants to focus on himself. Wasn't everything always for him? Cutting hair won't erase all the damage. Is this a redemption arc or a publicity stunt?" But the moment that shook the room came next. The interviewer leaned forward, voice softer now. "Kody, do you think cutting your—" "I don't know," he said. "But I think I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story." Those words rewrote the atmosphere instantly. Even the producers seemed stunned. Kody had never, ever, acknowledged how the world saw him. But maybe losing his curls made him lose some defenses too. Meanwhile, the family reactions behind the scenes were pure fire. When Christine saw the leaked photo, she reportedly said, "Oh. Good. Maybe now he can lose the attitude too." Janelle laughed. Actually laughed. "Well," she told a friend, "he finally cut something. Too bad it wasn't the budget." Meri's reaction cut deeper. He always hid behind those curls. Maybe he's finally ready to stop hiding. But Robyn did not take it well. Sources confirmed she cried when she saw the picture. Not a dramatic TV cry, an actual meltdown. She called TLC and said the leak ruined the reveal she wanted to control. One insider revealed, Robyn told him if he cuts his curls, he'll lose part of himself. But honestly, I think he lost that part long before. And that is the sentence that defines everything about where this story is headed. But there's more. TLC executives were blindsided. Some saw potential for a new narrative. Some feared it was just image manipulation. Some privately whispered, maybe he's preparing for something big. Fans speculated non-stop, rebranding. Midlife crisis. Trying to win back the audience. Trying to soften his image for season 20. Trying to repair his relationship with his kids. Trying to stop being the internet's favorite villain. But the truth was much more personal. Because after the interview ended, and the cameras finally shut off, Kody walked back into the dressing room alone. He looked at himself again in the mirror, this time without the cameras. The studio lights had barely cooled after Kody's new look interview, when the emotional shockwaves began spreading through every corner of the Brown family. What none of the producers expected was how deeply the haircut would trigger old wounds, unresolved resentment, and brand new tensions among the people who once called themselves a united plural family. Because Kody didn't just change a hairstyle, he cracked open a door everyone thought had been sealed shut years ago. And the moment that door opened, truth started spilling out faster than anyone could contain it. Back at the studio, the leaked photo kept spreading. By the time Kody returned home, the internet had already dissected every pixel, every angle, every expression on his face. TikTok videos stitched the image with dramatic soundtrack music. Instagram pages used bold red arrows pointing at his head, as if a crime scene had been discovered. Twitter threads were filled with theories, some wild, some insightful, some painfully accurate. And as each thread grew, Kody's phone exploded with notifications he couldn't turn off fast enough. But the message that hit him hardest came from one of his older daughters. A simple text that read, "Dad, why now?" No emojis. No extra words. Just 3 tiny words that sliced through every layer of justification he tried to build since walking out of the studio. He stared at that text long enough for the screen to dim. But he couldn't reply. Not yet. Not when he still didn't fully understand the answer himself. While he avoided responding, his children weren't avoiding talking. One kid wrote, "This is weird. He looks different. I don't know how to feel." Another replied, "Maybe he finally wants to look like a normal dad instead of a TV character." A third one shot back, "He can cut his hair, but he can't cut his ego." And then came the one message that broke the entire chat into silence. "I wish he changed the way he treats us instead of changing his look." When Kody finally sat down on his couch that evening, Robyn hovered nearby, pacing, holding her phone with tight fingers. She had been crying, not the quiet sniffles she used when she wanted sympathy, but deep, frustrated sobs that left streaks down her cheeks. To her, this haircut felt like abandonment. Not from her, but from the version of Kody she clung to, the version who aligned with her worldview, her expectations, her sense of what their marriage was supposed to represent. "Kody," she said, voice trembling, "I told you this was a mistake. The world is ripping you apart. They don't understand you. They are mocking you." He rubbed his face with both hands, exhausted. "Robyn, they always mock me. With or without the curls. That's not the point," she snapped, louder now. "You made a huge change without talking to me. You didn't ask what I thought. You didn't include me in your decision." He looked at her, tired, drained, emotionally bare. "Does everything I do have to revolve around what everyone thinks? Don't I get to do anything for myself anymore?" She froze. Her breath caught. Because she wasn't used to that version of him, the version that questioned her influence, her authority in his life, her role as the... While Robyn crumbled into quiet, defensive tears, across town, Janelle sat comfortably on her couch, legs up, a blanket over her lap, laughing aloud when she saw a meme comparing Kody's before and after pictures. Her laughter wasn't malicious, it was cathartic. A release of years of tension. Years of him ignoring her emotional needs. Years of arguments about finances, housing, and his inconsistent fatherhood. Her daughter, sitting beside her, chuckled and said, "Mom, look at this one. Someone said he looks like he finally joined modern society." Janelle snorted. Well, it only took him 30 years. Then her expression softened. Her eyes drifted back to the photo. Maybe this is good for him, she whispered. Maybe he's trying to restart something. Her daughter raised an eyebrow. Like what? His ego. No, Janelle said gently. Like his humanity. Meanwhile, in Utah, Christine stared at the photo with a smirk so confident it should have been framed. She was in her kitchen, apron on, flour on her fingers, kneading dough while humming, something she had learned to do freely since leaving Kody. When the photo popped onto her screen, she tilted her head and shook it slowly. "Well," she said, tapping the screen, "look who finally stopped pretending he's Samson." Her husband, David, walked in with a cup of coffee. "What happened?" She held up the phone. "He cut his hair." David burst into laughter. "That's it. That's the emergency." "No," Christine said, almost amused. "The emergency is that he probably thinks this makes him a new man." David leaned close, kissed her cheek, and said, "You're the new chapter. He's just trying to—" She set the phone down and returned to decorating her B&B, humming to herself with a peace she never found in plural marriage. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't emotional. She wasn't triggered. If anything, she was relieved. Back at TLC headquarters, executives gathered in a conference room, reviewing the footage of Kody's new look. Some saw potential, some saw trouble, some smelled ratings. But one producer said what everyone else was secretly thinking: this haircut is going to expose everything he's been hiding. Because the truth was this: Kody's curls were a shield. They protected the image he wanted the world to see: confident patriarch, fearless leader, charismatic head of a plural family. But without them, he suddenly appeared more human, more readable, more vulnerable. And vulnerability often reveals truths that confidence tries to bury. So TLC prepared for backlash, 4 questions, 4 family reactions they knew would come flooding in once the episode aired. But they weren't prepared for what happened next. Late that night, Kody stepped outside, needing air. The desert sky stretched endlessly above him, stars flickering like cold diamonds. The wind brushed against his now bare neck, and he shivered, not from cold, but from the unfamiliar sensation of being exposed. His phone buzzed again. Another text. This one from a son he rarely spoke to anymore. "Dad, you look different." "Not bad. Just different." A pause. Then another message arrived. "I hope this means you're changing on the inside too." Kody's breath caught in his throat. He typed back, then erased it. Typed again, erased again. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to explain what he didn't fully understand. So he finally typed, trying. One word. Sent at 1:13 a.m. The most honest word he had spoken in years. But trying wasn't enough to stop what came the next morning. Because by sunrise, the family group chat, the one he wasn't in, had reached a boiling point. Someone had added Meri. Someone had shown Christine. Someone had told a cousin. And suddenly the entire extended family was weighing in on the haircut, as if it were a national referendum. One message read, "Does anyone else feel like he's preparing for something huge?" Another, "Is this a rebrand? Is he trying to make fans like him again?" And the most chilling one, what if he's trying to win custody of something? Or someone? That message stopped the entire chat. Because Kody had a history of unexpected decisions, impulsive actions, and dramatic shifts when he felt cornered by public opinion. And if the haircut represented something bigger, something strategic, then the family needed to brace themselves. Meanwhile, unaware of the speculation erupting around him, Kody drove aimlessly through the empty streets of Flagstaff, running errands he didn't need to run, avoiding. "I hope it means you're finally ready to be a better dad." He froze. She walked away. He stood in the aisle, staring at a row of cereal boxes, feeling the weight of every failing he had tried to outrun. By the time he returned home, Robyn was pacing again. Her anxiety was suffocating the house. "People think you're changing," she said. "They think you're trying to fix things." "Maybe I am," he muttered. "No. Her voice cracked. You can't change everything. You can't let them think you're admitting guilt. You can't let them twist this into something it's not. Robyn, he sighed. Everything is already twisted. You don't need to become someone else, she cried. Maybe I do, he finally said, louder than he intended. Maybe I've been someone else for too long. Robyn's face fell. Her voice softened, almost trembling. I don't know who you're becoming, but I feel like I'm losing you. He didn't answer. Because he didn't know either. And that uncertainty, that tiny fracture, would soon grow into something unstoppable. Because while the haircut was just the beginning, the real storm was about to begin. The moment the interview break ended, the atmosphere inside the studio changed entirely. What had started as a simple reveal, Kody chopping off his famous curls, had exploded into a whirlwind of emotions, confessions, confrontations, and a level of vulnerability that Sister Wives fans had not seen from him in over a decade. By this point, even the producers who'd been filming this family for years were whispering among themselves, saying this didn't feel like a makeover moment anymore. It felt like a turning point in Kody Brown's life. And as the cameras switched back on and the lights intensified, everyone waited to see what he would do next, because one thing was clear, the haircut had unlocked something deeper in him. Something he had kept buried behind that mane of curls for years. Kody sat still for a long moment, staring ahead, almost forgetting the cameras were there. His hands were clasped tightly together, his forearms flexing with tension, and his new short hair exposed every shift in his facial expression. Without the curls covering him, there was no buffer between his emotions and the world. It was raw. It was honest. And it was impossible to ignore. Even Robyn, who had been trying to compose herself in the corner, looked at him with a strange mixture of fear and hope, as though she didn't know whether this transformation meant he was coming back to her emotionally, or breaking away completely. The interviewer spoke gently, aware of the fragile energy in the room, asking Kody what the haircut symbolized for him. It felt like a simple question, but his new look had already triggered confessions about the collapse of his family, the emotional distance with his children, and his regrets about choices that had broken trust. The interviewer leaned forward, encouraging him to continue the narrative he had reluctantly started. Kody inhaled deeply, looked at the studio floor, and then finally raised his head. He said the haircut wasn't just a change. Robyn's eyes filled again, but this time something felt different about her reaction. Instead of rushing to him, she stayed seated, clutching a crumpled tissue in her hand, as she whispered something under her breath, something the mic picked up faintly. She said she wasn't sure if she was losing him, or finally getting the real him for the first time. The producer gave her the go-ahead to speak up, and she exhaled shakily, saying she never realized just how much pressure he had been under. She admitted that she had pushed him to stay strong even when he was clearly falling apart, because she didn't know how to navigate any other version of him. Their marriage had been built on the idea that he was the leader, the protector, the decision-maker. But now, his vulnerability wasn't just surprising, it scared her, because she didn't know how to support this version of him. The studio was silent as she spoke, and when she finished, all eyes turned to Kody to see whether he would react with anger, defensiveness, or distance like he often did on TV. But instead, he surprised everyone by nodding. He told her he understood why she felt that way, that he recognized he hadn't made it easy for anyone to help him. He said he wanted to try something new, being honest, being imperfect, being human. Robyn's expression softened, though confusion still flickered across her face. The interviewer then asked the question everyone was waiting for: would this transformation affect the future of his relationships with his ex-wives? Would he try to rebuild anything with Meri, who had been the first to reach out? Or with Janelle, who refused to sugarcoat his mistakes, but still cared about the father of her children? Or even with Christine, the wife who walked away the strongest, the happiest, and perhaps the most healed of all? Kody paused. Everyone leaned in, feeling the weight of the moment. He said he couldn't fix everything overnight. He didn't expect forgiveness. The crew exchanged glances. This wasn't just a makeover interview anymore. It was turning into a therapy session broadcast to the world. Suddenly, the producer received a message in his earpiece and looked up quickly. He signaled to the cameraman to zoom out slightly, and a few seconds later, the studio door opened. In walked someone no one expected, Christine's daughter Michael T, holding her phone with a video recording already rolling.